Hello everyone, my name is Vanessa Diaz. I am in Arts 1301, Section V05, and today I'll be talking to you about the contemporary artist known as Banksy. So, although I would love to talk about Banksy's growing up and his childhood and the way that he has gone through certain things to create him as a successful street artist that he is, his identity has been undetermined and nobody really knows what his true identity is. Although there have been various speculations on his identity, none of them have ever been confirmed. So there have been very minimal interviewers that have had the opportunity to have interviewed him, and many of them have described him as a white male with a silver tooth. So I guess that narrows down our selection to like a few million, around 28 years old. And as ironic as it seems, he has always been viewed with scruffy clothing such as loose jeans and baggy t-shirts. I feel like this is very ironic because it fits into the stereotype of that hipster gang style that a lot of individuals that do street art tend to wear. And although he has created a very positive yet controversial impact for himself, he tends to fit into that stereotype. So interviewers had said that he is a cross between Jimmy Nail and Mike Skinner, and when I searched up these two individuals to see who they actually were and how they could possibly have related to Banksy in a way, I found it very interesting because Jimmy Nail is an American singer-songwriter guitarist, and Mike Skinner is a professional race car driver. And I found it very funny because these two men are American, and Banksy is based in Europe. So as for his career, he has been in the industry for over 20 years, and I find it very funny because 20 years creating street art, that basically is that he's been, if you were to put it in honest words, that he's been vandalizing a lot of public walls and public buildings for 20 years, and law enforcement still has not been able to catch him. I find that very funny, but he did begin in Europe and has brought his art all over the world, as in a lot of his stencils have been seen in North America, South America, all over Europe already, and a few places in Asia. So back in 1990, he had an incident with law enforcement where he was almost caught and persecuted for vandalism in a public place. So after this, he realized that he needed a more quicker and efficient way to be able to create his art without having the chance of getting caught. So many of the techniques that he used to use began into a more simpler way, such as stencils and spray paint. Obviously, you must use spray paint if you're going to want to create art on side of the buildings, due to spray paint being a more efficient and faster way. But stencils really was a change in the street art game in terms of productivity, because by stencils you are able to take an image or certain sketch that you want and be able to produce it within a few minutes, within a few seconds if possible. And it was a way for Banksy to really be able to be more efficient in terms of doing certain artworks and then being able to leave right away. So he is a very controversial street artist due to the messages portrayed in his art. A lot of artists tend to do messages that portray beauty and landscapes and a lot of elements that we have learned past in Arts 1301, but his art really is elemental, and it frames a lot of natural elements that contributed to his successful within the street art business. Because if you can see in this picture right here, and this is one of his artworks, and it is based alongside a brick wall that has the connection with the floor. So he created a man that is sitting on the floor, and it looks very real if you take a first glance at it. and it says, "Keep your coins, I want change." And I found that very interesting because I took from it that a lot of times certain individuals that aren't as beneficial as us, their voices aren't as heard as they should be. And a lot of times we tend to dismiss their opinion because we say like, oh, they're on the streets, they obviously have done something wrong for them to be there and not under a roof. And a lot of the times it's because our society is so corrupt and so political that if you don't know enough people, then you won't be successful in our lives. So when I read that I Want Change, I saw it as he does have a voice also, and he also is able to see what is going on around him. And I guess from having experienced that on a personal level, where individuals who have a voice that isn't heard, it gets very frustrating. And I feel like that's what Banksy is trying to create. He's trying to create a pathway for individuals to have their voices heard, and for him to share his own voice about certain issues that people aren't always comfortable talking about. So his artworks are oftentimes based outdoors for the majority, since they always are since they always are alongside buildings and walls. He is slowly creating a positive portrayal of graffiti art, and street art and graffiti has always had a negative connotation to it, based on gangs trying to show off their symbol in certain areas of different gangs' territories. And it was a very bad time for street art to be done and be able to get the connotation that if you do it, then you're obviously ghetto or something in that sense. But Banksy is really trying to take a stance in his own perspectives of certain issues, and I find that very interesting. And the purpose of his artworks was executed to raise conversations about social and cultural issues, and it's most likely to be alongside a building wall rather than a physical three-dimensional sculpture. Although he has created some sculptures, the majority of his artworks have been paintings of stenciling alongside a wall. And as you can see right here in this painting that he has done, it is a maid, and it is also the one that I had submitted for my contemporary artist discussion. When I first saw this, I thought, wow. For instance, it looks very convincing because of the white drape that was painted all alongside here. This three-dimensional figure, it was very convincing in the sense, he created a barrier between physical and ideal art. And I got from this was that everybody has their own agenda, and everybody is going to do what they wish to do despite the consequences. And I feel like that was very scary, because these are people that you're supposed to trust, and you're supposed to confide in them to go through your personal belongings, and then for them to be lying about certain issues. If you see very closely, she has a dustpan and she's just throwing it under, meaning yes, the outside may look very clean, but check under your bed. That's where all the trash is. So as for his legal standing in the United States, he has never been prosecuted for vandalism since he was almost caught back in 1990, and since then he became very smart in terms of how to hide who he is. So whenever he is posting his stencils, obviously there are going to be people passing by, but he has done a very good job at hiding it and have convinced individuals to not let out his identity. And by being unidentified, this has allowed his art to continue growing alongside public places and snuck into art museums. So he is very against the organized art community, yet he sneaks in his art into museums. He doesn't contradict himself, it's just he does things that you wouldn't think he does. So I feel like that's what makes him even more powerful, because he literally does what he wants to do without thinking of consequences or without overthinking about certain issues. If he wants to do something, he does, and that's something that I admired from him a lot. And in this painting right here, you see two soldiers that painted a peace sign but are going against what laws are saying about vandalism. I don't know, it was just very controversial, and I thought it was funny because you never know what our own federal soldiers or government is doing. As for his stance in the art community, like I just said, he is very against it because he wants to do whatever he wants rather than focusing on what others expect of him to do. And he is very well known in terms of being a street artist, and he has gained a lot of respect due to his unfiltered artworks, because if he tries to do what everybody else tries to do, then he's just going to become just another artist. He isn't going to have anything that makes him stand out. And by doing original stenciling and by doing controversial art, it's a way for him to always be having an input in what is going on in our society. And it's a way for individuals to be able to open up their eyes in terms of social issues or political issues of what's going on in politics today. That's a very big issue in our United States. And he goes against the organized art world in terms of, there was one time where he snuck one of his artworks into an auction and everybody was bidding for it. And he commented anonymously, of course, that I can't believe everybody's buying this crap. And obviously I said it in a much nicer way than he said it, but he makes fun of his own art because it's street art, and street art isn't as appreciated as, per se, an art by Leonardo da Vinci. So his art is combined with dark humor, political, social, and philosophical theories, and this has left a large impact on other street artists and has unknowingly created the Banksy effect. So in this artist, you see that this couple is very happy and they're showing off their happiness and that they're getting on a carriage ride to the world, since they are taking a photograph of it. But what they're not focusing and what they're not taking a picture of is the little boy that is carrying them. Obviously, the adults are much bigger than the little boy, and the adults are placed in color because they're happy, they're vibrant, they're successful in society. And while this little boy is trying to fend for himself and trying to maybe fend for his family, he has to do things that a child his age shouldn't be doing. And that's what the black and white to me represents. It represents that dull and the unfairness in our society about, if you're rich, you're going to be rich, but if you're poor, you're supposed to stay poor until you find some sort of hole to get out of it. So thank you so much for watching my presentation. Today I did talk to you about the unknown identity of Banksy, as well as his contradictory in the organized art community, as well as the different types of cultures and different types of issues that he does mention within his artworks. And I admire him as an artist a lot because I feel like he's just one voice that has created a big impact on many people. And if we were to have more individuals like Banksy and the Banksy effect of other street artists wanting to create their voice larger and want to create a larger voice in terms of spreading certain awareness on issues that as a society that we're oftentimes not comfortable talking about, I feel like it's a way to finally have progress and prospering together as a democracy. And I feel Banksy is the type of contemporary artist to do that. And I feel like his work has always been understated, but it speaks so much in so little. And although sometimes his artwork is very funny, it has a message, and it has a message of awareness, making a change. It has a message of do something about it, because if not, something worse will happen. Thank you so much for allowing me to present to you the contemporary artist known as Banksy, and hopefully one of these days he will finally be identified so we can give him the well-deserved credit that he has so long deserved.